I ate one meal a day for 30 days and it completely transformed my body. I was the leanest I've ever been. I thought I'd found the magic pill to weight loss, or so I thought. Because deep inside, eating one meal a day actually destroyed my health. I'll give you the full story and how I was able to turn it around, but first, let me give you some context to really understand all of this. Let's rewind all the way back when I was 21. My girlfriend had just dumped me after our Hawaii vacation. Thanks, Sydney. Truth be told, I got a little bit too comfortable with my diet during the relationship. I mean, all we did was eat. So I was now faced with the stark realization that I was in the worst shape of my life. My clothes didn't fit me well, my relaxed fit shirts were now slim fit. I would avoid any situation where I had to take my shirt off in public. I felt extremely self-conscious at public locker rooms. I felt bad every time I looked myself in the mirror. And as you can see from this rare shirtless picture back then, this was from the Hawaii trip. I was using my bag to hide my belly. You could see how uncomfortable I was the way I was smiling. I was the not so proud owner of a dad bod. The problem is, I wasn't a dad. Not feeling good about myself definitely took a toll on my confidence and self-esteem. After wallowing in misery for weeks after the breakup, I read a line on the cover page of a Men's Health magazine while waiting in line to pay for a king-size Snickers bar that would forever change the trajectory of my life. It read somewhere along the lines of, "Want to make your ex jealous? Get in the best shape of your life by doing this one thing." Petty, I know, but that lit a fire under my butt, so I bought the magazine. The article talked about the usual things, exercise, but it also introduced me to the concept of intermittent fasting. It's where you eat in a small window of time. Basically, I just had to skip breakfast. And I was never a big fan of eating breakfast to begin with. I just never had a big appetite first thing in the morning, so immediately, I was sold. I jumped straight into it. And after just 8 weeks of skipping breakfast, I lost 15 pounds. It completely transformed my body. It almost seemed too good to be true. That strategy worked for a while, but then I started to notice my weight loss progress slowing down. I went from losing 2 pounds a week to a pound a week, then half a pound a week. Eventually, the weight loss came to a screeching halt. And after a while, I actually found myself gaining weight. Fast forward a few years and I stumbled upon a book called Eat, Stop, Eat. It called for eating one meal a day, twice a week. That seemed to kickstart my weight loss again. But eventually, I hit a plateau and started to gain weight again. My frustration level was rising. I thought this intermittent fasting thing was supposed to work like magic. So I started to look for possible answers on YouTube. Turns out I wasn't the only one struggling to maintain my results. And then I started seeing other people doing longer fasts like 48 hours, 3-day water fasts, dry fasting, so I tried all of them. And the pattern stayed the same. I would lose weight when I fasted, but I always ended back in the same spot after I broke the fast and started eating again. It's as if the fast never happened. Needless to say, I was starting to get desperate. Then I saw people doing 7-day water fasts. So I thought to myself, maybe that was it. I just had to stop eating for 7 days. And while it was an amazing experience because I did it with my mom, I still wasn't happy with where I was at afterwards. So back to YouTube for answers. That was when I stumbled upon the concept of eating one meal a day. Some people call it OMAD for short. So I thought to myself, this has to be it. And it was a hit. After eating one meal a day for 30 days, I got down to the leanest weight I've ever been. And I wish I could tell you that I lived happily ever after. Unfortunately, again, the results were only short-lived. I couldn't maintain it. I started to gain weight despite eating just one meal a day. At the same time, years of fasting was starting to take a toll on my body. The catalyst to my initial weight loss transformation was now starting to affect me negatively. When I got blood work done, my testosterone wasn't optimal and my thyroid was also tanking. On top of that, I was always cold, I was tired all the time, I always had cramping problems whenever I did something physical, and my sleep wasn't so good. The cramping problems got so bad that this one time, it took me hours to get down from a hike because my legs kept seizing. And the cramping problems only got worse from there. My breaking point unfortunately came at the most inopportune time. I started cramping in the middle of competition when I was a competitive weightlifter. Because of it, I missed qualifying for nationals. That crushed me. Countless hours of training down the drain because my body betrayed me. I was stuck between a rock and a hard place. I had to admit to myself that eating one meal a day wasn't working anymore. It actually stopped working a long time ago. I was just in denial. I mean, it was starting to affect my life negatively. In fact, it was destroying my health. Determined to find answers, I started to look more into the world of nutrition science. And there was a lot there, so I became obsessed with it. Turns out there's so much more to just eating one meal a day. When you eat and what you eat are equally as important. And here I was thinking that I had the when you eat part figured out because I was just eating one meal a day. And it's all because intermittent fasting was the catalyst to my initial weight loss transformation. So it kind of became my identity. I developed the mentality that because it worked before, maybe I just had to go harder. I had to do it longer. I thought that because something is good for you, then more is always better. I was wrong. That was a tough pill to swallow. Because by definition, intermittent means occurring at irregular times, not continuous or steady. I backed myself into a corner over the years where I got to a point where I was just eating one meal a day. Turns out, intermittent fasting is kind of like medicine. You don't want to overdo it. You don't want to take a bunch of pills altogether. It's all about taking the right dose. Like if you have a migraine and you pop some Advil, you don't keep popping Advil every day like it's candy, right? As with a lot of things, you can definitely do too much of a good thing. Some of the potential negative effects of overfasting can be seen in this 8-week study of a 16-hour fast, and they saw a significant decline in testosterone. I mean, I had graduated from that 16-hour fast years ago and I was just eating one meal a day. Overdoing intermittent fasting has also been shown to tank the thyroid. That was an important piece of information when I discovered it, because low levels of thyroid, a condition called hypothyroidism, results in weight gain. Things were starting to make sense. And when it comes to the what you eat part of the equation, I definitely wasn't eating enough. Desperate to see the scale moving again, I was eating as low as 1,000 calories a day when I was down to just eating one meal a day. And because I was scared of calories, I was eating a lot of refined foods like low-fat turkey meatballs, low-fat cheese, which tasted like butt, low-fat rice crackers, and low-fat ice cream for dessert. I was never satiated from those meals. And over time, my body eventually slowed down my metabolism to 1,000 calories because that's all that was coming in. I was always hungry, I was irritable, I was always cold, and I felt tired all the time. I was basically starving myself. And to keep losing weight, I was now faced with the dilemma that I had to cut even more calories and or do an even longer fast. I couldn't bear the thought of eating one meal every 2 days. That's no way to live because something had to change. And nothing illustrates the situation I found myself in more than studies done on the Biggest Loser contestants. They lose a ton of weight while they're on the show by severely cutting their calories and doing overly strenuous workouts, but after they're done the show, because their metabolism has gone down, they eventually gain all the weight back and then some. Next, I was also trying to cheat the system. Because I had a sweet tooth, I would put 3 packets of stevia, a 0-calorie sweetener, in my morning coffee, times 2, because I always had a second cup mid-morning. I also drank at least a couple of cans of Diet Coke a day. I thought it was okay because it had 0 calories. Looking back now, I was basically trying to fool my body. Damn those 0-calorie marketing schemes. The problem is, my body still had a physiological response when I put stevia in my coffee or whenever I drank a can of Diet Coke. I was inadvertently breaking my fast and sending all the wrong signals to my body. My hunger and cravings always went up tenfold afterwards. Turns out, nothing that sweet gets a free pass once it enters your system. It's akin to thinking that eating calories in the dark doesn't count because nobody can see you. I didn't know that the combination of eating highly refined foods and overconsumption of artificial sweeteners was short-circuiting my brain. I also didn't know that eating one meal a day and under-eating was tanking my hormones and metabolism. Wanting to put an end to my misery, I started to go back to the basics. I started reading books about what a proper diet is for humans. That was my turning point. The most important concept I learned is what you stop eating has far more impact to your health than what you start eating. I stopped eating garbage food like fast food, especially after I saw a picture of fast food that was 10 years old. Only the wrapping paper looks old. Like, I never wanted to eat fast food after seeing that picture. I stopped using artificial sweeteners. Instead, I learned to appreciate the taste of black coffee with a splash of heavy cream. I stopped drinking Diet Coke. I switched to soda water instead. I made a deal with myself that I had to limit my consumption of refined carbs and refined sugar like cookies, pasta, pizza, and the likes. I only ate them once a week. Next, this was initially tough to wrap my head around, but I had to take one step back in order to take 2 steps forward. I had to do a reverse diet where I increased my calories for a month to revive my struggling metabolism. During that time, I focused on food quality. I started eating real food, and for the first time in my life, I experienced what it was like to be fully satiated from eating. Looking back now, intermittent fasting worked initially because it created a calorie deficit for the first time in my life. I just overdid it all the way to eating 1 meal a day and didn't pay enough attention to my diet. These days, I'm much more relaxed with intermittent fasting. I do a 14 to 16 hour fast on weekdays. Then on weekends, I'll have brunch and have a 10 to 12 hour eating window. And then once every couple of weeks, I'll do 1 meal a day, especially when I know I'm eating out that day. But that's it. The biggest thing I pay attention to is food quality, and my body is so much happier. This is also the physique I maintain these days at 35 years old while fasting intermittently. Now, if you enjoyed this video, then you're gonna love this one. I'll see you there.